Hey, Jacqueline, you ever find yourself in that classic predicament? You're having a perfectly good chat, maybe with a friend, a colleague, or even family, and then bam! Someone drops an opinion or a statement that just completely clashes with yours. And in that split second, your brain's just screaming, do I engage? Do I just let it slide? How do I even begin to express a different viewpoint without making things super awkward or, worse, starting a full-blown argument?
Oh, Duke, you've hit the nail right on the head. It's that internal debate we all have. You feel that little knot tighten in your stomach, right? Like you have a valid point, a totally different perspective, but the fear of creating tension or being seen as confrontational often makes us either clam up or we blurt something out that we instantly regret. It's such a universal experience.
It really is. And it's not just about winning an argument, is it? It's about being heard, about contributing, about moving forward constructively, but crucially, without damaging those valuable relationships. Because let's be honest, disagreements are inevitable. We all have different experiences, different information, different ways of looking at the world.
Absolutely. I mean, imagine a world where everyone just nodded and agreed all the time. Nothing would ever change, nothing would ever improve. Innovation often sparks from a clash of ideas. The challenge, as you said, is how we handle that clash. How do we disagree respectfully, gracefully, without letting it escalate into something negative?
That's precisely why we're dedicating today's episode to the art of disagreeing gracefully. How to express a different opinion without creating conflict. It's a skill that, honestly, I think should be taught in schools because it impacts every single facet of our lives.
I couldn't agree more, and I think the first, most fundamental step, even before you formulate your own response, is what I like to call radical listening. It's not just passively hearing the words someone's saying, it's truly actively trying to understand their perspective, their reasoning, their emotional drivers behind that opinion.
That's such a crucial distinction, radical listening, because so often we're not actually listening to understand, we're listening to respond. We're already crafting our counter-argument in our heads while the other person is still speaking. And when you do that, you inevitably miss key points, subtle cues, and the underlying sentiment.
Exactly. And when you miss those things, your response can feel off base or dismissive to the other person. They might feel unheard, and that's when walls start going up. So a powerful technique within radical listening is to paraphrase. Say something like, so if I'm understanding you correctly, your main concern is X because of Y. Or, it sounds like you're advocating for Z primarily due to these factors, is that right?
Oh, that's brilliant, Jacqueline. Because not only does it ensure you're actually understanding them, but it also signals to them that you've truly engaged with what they're saying. It validates their viewpoint, even if you ultimately don't agree with it. It's a sign of respect that can de-escalate potential tension before it even begins.
Precisely, and that respect is key. Once you've genuinely listened and shown that you understand, then and only then are you in a good position to introduce your own perspective. And when you do, my next big tip is to lean heavily on I statements.
The I statements. A classic for a reason. Instead of your idea is fundamentally flawed because, which, let's be honest, sounds like a direct attack, we shift to something like, I'm seeing a potential challenge with that approach, particularly regarding X. Or, from my perspective, I have some reservations about how that might impact Y.
Exactly. Think about the psychological impact. When you say you're wrong or that's a terrible idea, you're essentially saying you, the person, are flawed or incorrect. That immediately triggers a defensive reaction. It makes people feel personally attacked. And once they're on the defensive, rational discussion often goes out the window.
Absolutely, their brain switches from problem-solving mode to self-preservation mode. But when you say, I feel, I think, I've observed, or I'm concerned, you're owning your feelings and experiences. No one can argue with your personal experience. It's not about them being wrong. It's about your valid, different viewpoint, which allows for a softer, more open dialogue.
And it makes it easier for them to hear you. It creates space for both of your perspectives to exist simultaneously, rather than one trying to obliterate the other. It's a subtle but incredibly powerful shift in language that can completely change the dynamic of a conversation.
Which leads us to another critical point. Focus on the idea, not the person. This is where things often go south really fast. As soon as we start questioning someone's intelligence, their motives, their character, or bringing up past unrelated issues, the conversation is over. It's no longer about the topic, it's about personal grievances.
Oh, absolutely. I've seen that happen so many times, both in professional settings and personal ones. Someone says, well, you always do X, or you clearly don't understand how this works because you've never had to deal with Y, and poof, the actual issue is completely lost. It devolves into a personal attack, and trust erodes almost instantly.
It's so hard to build that trust back up once it's been compromised by personal attacks. Even if you apologize later, the sting of being personally undermined can linger. So make a conscious effort to keep your feedback and your differing opinion strictly focused on the subject matter at hand, the proposal, the plan, the statement, never the individual.
And here's a technique that I find incredibly effective in bridging that gap, finding common ground and acknowledging validity. Even if you disagree with 90% of what someone is saying, there's usually some small part you can honestly agree with or validate. It could be their passion, their goal, or even just the fact that they've clearly thought about it.
Yes! Like, I really appreciate your enthusiasm for this project, and I totally agree we need to prioritize customer experience. However, I'm a bit concerned that this specific feature might add too much complexity for our average user. You're starting with alignment, which makes the subsequent disagreement much easier to swallow.
Exactly. It's like, I can totally see why you'd feel that way given your past experiences. Or, I completely understand your concern about budget. That's something we definitely need to consider. My thinking, though, is that investing up front here might save us more in the long run. You're building a bridge, not just stating your opposing view from across a chasm.
Absolutely, and it shows respect. It shows that you've listened, processed, and are willing to acknowledge their perspective, even if you're coming from a different place. It creates a collaborative atmosphere where solutions can emerge, rather than a competitive one, where one person wins and the other loses.
But Duke, let's be real. Sometimes, despite all our best efforts, a conversation just isn't going anywhere productive. It starts to feel like you're talking to a brick wall, or worse, it's getting emotionally charged and unproductive. So knowing when to gracefully disengage is also a superpower.
Oh, absolutely. This is probably one of the hardest ones for many people, myself included sometimes. There's that impulse to keep pushing, to make your point heard, to convince the other person. But sometimes, pushing harder just makes them dig in even deeper and the whole thing just spirals.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that not every disagreement needs to be resolved right then and there, and some disagreements, frankly, will never be fully resolved. So having a few exit phrases up your sleeve can be incredibly helpful. Things like, I think we're going to have to agree to disagree on this for now, or, I really appreciate you sharing your perspective, and I've heard you, but I think we see this differently. Perhaps we can circle back to it another time.
Or even just, I need a moment to think about what you've said, and I'd like to revisit this later. That gives everyone a chance to cool off, process, and potentially come back to the discussion with fresh eyes, or simply to let it go if it's not a critical issue.
It's a sign of maturity and emotional intelligence, honestly. It's not giving up. It's prioritizing the relationship and your own peace of mind over the need to win or prove a point in the moment. And frankly, some topics are just not worth sacrificing a relationship over.
Couldn't agree more. Now, we've talked a lot about the words we use, but what about the unspoken language? Our body language, our tone of voice. These can often speak louder than any words we utter, especially in a disagreement.
Oh, absolutely. You could be saying all the right things, using I statements, listening intently, but if your arms are crossed tightly, your jaw is clenched, your eyes are narrowed, and your tone is sarcastic or condescending, your words are going to ring hollow. The nonverbal cues will totally undermine your message.
It's so true. Maintaining open body language, like uncrossed arms, a relaxed posture, and making appropriate eye contact, not an aggressive stare down but an engaged gaze, signals that you're open to dialogue, not preparing for battle. And your tone of voice, keeping it calm, measured, and even-keeled, even when you're feeling a bit frustrated, is paramount.
A soft, respectful tone can convey genuine respect, even when you're delivering a strongly opposing opinion. Conversely, a harsh, clipped tone can turn even the most benign I statement into an attack.
No?
So, it's about congruence, making sure your words and your nonverbal cues are sending the same message of respect and openness.
I remember a project meeting where one of my team members had a really strong stance on a particular technical implementation. I genuinely believed it had significant long-term risks. Instead of just shutting him down, I started with, I really admire your innovative thinking on this, and I agree we need a robust solution. My concern, however, is that based on my past experience with system integrations, this particular approach often leads to compatibility issues down the line. What if we explored a more modular design initially?
That's fantastic, Duke. You acknowledged his positive attributes, validated his intent, and then introduced your concern with a clear, experience-based rationale, followed by a collaborative suggestion. How did he react?
He paused for a second, considered it, and then said, "You know what? That's a fair point. I hadn't thought about the legacy system implications in that way." It led to a much more thorough discussion, and ultimately we adopted a hybrid approach that minimized risk while still incorporating his innovative ideas. It felt like a win for everyone, not just me winning the argument.
Unspoken. That's the ideal outcome, isn't it? When a disagreement leads to a better, more robust solution or a deeper understanding. I had a similar situation with a close friend about a parenting philosophy recently. We both care deeply about our kids, but our approaches sometimes diverge wildly. Instead of debating whose method was right, I focused on, I understand your desire to foster independence in your child, and I really value that. For me, with my child, I've found that a bit more structured guidance at this stage has been beneficial, and I'm learning a lot about how to balance that. It kept the conversation open and non-judgmental.
That's a brilliant way to handle it, Jacqueline, especially with friends or family where the emotional stakes are often much higher. It's about acknowledging that both people are coming from a place of good intent, even if their methods or conclusions differ, and focusing on your own experience makes it relatable rather than prescriptive.
Exactly, because often beneath the differing opinions, we share very similar core values. Like we both want our kids to be happy, healthy, and successful. We just have different ideas about the best path to get there. Highlighting those shared values can really help ground the conversation.
So when we put all these strategies into practice, the radical listening, the I statements, focusing on ideas, not people, finding common ground, mastering our nonverbals, and knowing when to disengage gracefully, what are the real long-term benefits we can expect?
Oh, the benefits are immense, Duke. First and foremost, stronger relationships. When people feel truly heard and respected, even when you disagree with them, it builds incredible trust and resilience. Your relationships become more robust because they can weather honest differences of opinion.
Absolutely. And it fosters an environment of psychological safety, especially in professional settings. When team members know they can voice a dissenting opinion without fear of reprisal, or without being shut down or personally attacked, they're much more likely to speak up. That means better ideas, catching potential problems earlier, and ultimately, making much more informed and robust decisions.
Precisely. Disagreement, when handled skillfully, isn't a roadblock. It's a catalyst for innovation and growth. It challenges assumptions, pushes boundaries, and helps everyone see issues from multiple angles. It actually leads to better outcomes, not worse.
And personally, I think it reduces stress for everyone involved. No one enjoys being embroiled in a bitter argument. Learning these skills makes navigating disagreements far less taxing, both mentally and emotionally. It cultivates a sense of calm and control in potentially volatile situations.
Definitely. It's about empowering ourselves to engage in important conversations without the dread of conflict. It reframes disagreement from a battle to be won into a collaborative process of exploration and understanding.
So, as we bring today's discussion to a close, I think the overarching message here is that disagreeing gracefully isn't about avoiding conflict entirely. It's about transforming that potential conflict into something constructive, something that builds rather than breaks.
It really is an essential life skill. It requires self-awareness, empathy, patience, and a genuine commitment to understanding, even when your views are poles apart. It takes practice, sometimes a lot of practice, but the profound rewards for your relationships, your professional life, and your own peace of mind are absolutely worth the effort.
Couldn't have said it better, Jacqueline. So next time you find yourself facing that moment of divergent opinions, remember these tools. Take a breath, listen deeply, lead with I statements, focus on the idea, find that common ground, and choose grace over gripes. It'll make a world of difference.
Absolutely. Here's to more constructive conversations and fostering stronger, more resilient connections in all areas of our lives. Thanks for joining us today, Duke.
And thank you, Jacqueline, for this enlightening chat. And thank you, our listeners, for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.